I'd like to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. The first thing we have is assignment for request for council action. We have several for finance. 1852, trade-in of police department firearms. 1853, purchase of 2018 all-wheel drive Interceptor, municipal court. 1854, fiscal year 2016 CHIP, private rehab, 749 North Huntington. 1855, fiscal year 2016 CHIP, private rehab, 527 Bronson Street. 1856, expenditure for equipment of new pumper, fire department. 1857, authorized conversion of ED and marketing associate position to full-time. 1858, MCRC amends salaries and benefits code, pay grade change to for two positions. 1859, City Hall parking structure, public bidding procedure and consultant selection. 1860, 2017 carry forward ordinance. 1861, budget amendments, and 1862, fund advance number 001 to 386. First item we have is 1817 Spring Road Cemetery Calabarium Wall. Jansen?
Thank you. The Cemetery Commission and the Public Properties Committee met following our last discussion at Finance about the Columbarium Wall niche that we're anticipating construction in 2018. We revisited the pricing structure for that, as well as the cost distribution as part of Ordinance 22605, where the niche money is split into three separate accounts. Once it's paid to us, with 53% going to the Mausoleum or Cemetery Improvement Fund, and 30% going to the Perpetual Care Fund, and 17% going into the operating fund. And the reason we visited this is because the original wall has raised a little over $54,000 at this point. Since we first discussed this, we're down to 6 niche. We've sold 3 already since the last meeting. And we're a little bit short on money available to construct the second wall. So the price structure that we came up with excuse me, is option C in the packet that you have, where we're proposing a tiered pricing system. Our current wall's at $950 a niche. The recommendation is that we go to a tiered system, so the bottom row will be $200 cheaper than the top row. So hopefully we sell niche throughout the wall rather than all on the top, all in the middle, and then all on the bottom. So the bottom row's $1,150, top row, middle row's $1,250, and the top row's $1,350. This should generate approximately $87,000 once we adjust the 3 percentages for purchasing the niche. And that $87,000, according to our landscape architect, Benke and Associates, who has drafted our master plan, should be more than enough money to construct the third wall, which they are projecting will need to be built around 2024. The high end of their estimate is $85,000. So it's our hope that this new structure, combined with the percentage adjustment, taking the 5% from the operating fund and moving it to the Mausoleum Fund, this should be more than enough to cover the construction of our third wall at the cemetery.
Jim, for your group?
It did go through 3-0. I know we talked about the closing fee, maybe possibly having a resident and non-resident fee, but then that went back to the Cemetery Commission and Public Properties, and we just decided that was a little too hard to trace, and we feel like this option C will definitely cover the cost of the next wall, so we were fine with leaving it just with option C and not doing anything about the opening and closing fee.
Anybody else on it?
As Jansen mentioned, Mr. Benke, who made the estimates for the cost of the current wall that we're going to be constructing and the future wall, historically, at least with the cemetery projects, has always bid at the highest. I mean, give an estimate at the highest. So hopefully it'll come in under what he's projecting the cost will be. The only other question I have, and I think I mentioned it at the cemetery commission, with there only being 6 left, and I know they run in spurts, you know, people, you'll have traditional burials, and then all of a sudden you'll get quite a few that are cremations and either one it being turned in the ground or the wall. With only 6 left, do you think that maybe we should be asking the emergency clause on this?
Well, really, the only thing that we need to move forward with the planning and design phase of it is the $8,000 portion of the request that I have in there.
Okay.
If we can make a separate motion to approve that. I wanted to include it with this request so that you were aware of all the costs that were involved with it. If we could break that out and approve that, all I need to do is send the purchase order and they can start drafting it, the documents to bid it. So I don't think we need the emergency clause.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Any other discussion?
So today you'd want it broken out, or when it goes to council?
It's an $8,000 expenditure. If
So
we're
if you
able
just
to
do
approve
2
it.
motions, that's fine. And do one for the 8,000, that'll give finance approval, they can go ahead and bid.
Okay, so I'll make a motion and move to approve the 8,000 design fee.
Second?
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then I'll make a second motion to approve option C, which is the funding and the new rates and the splits of the money that comes in for the sale of columbarium.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we got 1850, the Parks Department reorganization. Jansen, you're up again.
Thank you. This request is to reorganize the Parks Department due to a recent retirement that we had as of the end of January. Since that retirement, I reached out to communities in Northeast Ohio to inquire about how their parks departments were structured, and what I found was there wasn't a whole lot of similarities. So I kind of looked at the needs of our department, where we were in 2014, and kind of where we've come today. And the needs that we have is, I need at least 2 skilled, qualified people in the field that can do the hands-on work. Over the last several years, the department's transitioned through a lot, and a lot of the superintendent's duties were absorbed in the director's position. So what I'm proposing is that we eliminate the superintendent's position and combine it with my position, and then recreate the foreman position at pay grade 37, which is similar to all the departments in service. And the main reason for that is the department, when we have joined the 3 together, Park, Cemetery, and Forestry, the collaboration works really well, but you kind of have to have a point person to help delegate and talk with 3 departments heads and make that decision as to which work for that day takes priority. And this new structure, I think, will serve the department well, because it'll give us the ability to make sure that we have a good leader and a foreman, as well as a maintenance technician once we have a retirement in the future. So that we'll have 2 full-time positions that are job description specific, that will enable us to have individuals with valuable skills to help repair and maintain a lot of our mechanical systems and amenities in the parks. So it's kind of a several phase request here to combine classifications of the superintendent and the director, abolish the superintendent, recreate the parks foreman, and then eventually create a parts maintenance technician, which will be union eligible at a pay grade 32. And this position, like I mentioned, won't take effect until there is an opening in a full-time laborer classification. So we're not creating a new position here, we're just reclassifying once a retirement comes up. And then also included is several minor changes to various job descriptions in the department to basically change who they're reporting to. specifically the city arborist, the sexton, and our turf technician. This proposed change will save the department some money, as well as basically streamline who reports to who and who fills in when certain pieces of our structure are missing, which is something that's been lacking over the last several years, and I'm confident that moving forward with this will greatly improve, continue to improve the services that we've been striving to improve over the last several years. An emergency clause is requested because the position, as I mentioned, was vacant at the end of January. The request, I put this request in February, and our season is rapidly approaching. We're conducting seasonal interviews this week. We have individuals starting work April 1st, and our associations are beginning mid-April with the Gateway tournament and so on and so forth. So there's a relatively narrow window of opportunity to hire an employee, go through the testing process, and select that individual, as well as train them with the the season rapidly approaching. So appreciate your time, and that's all I have at this point. Civil Service did approve this March 7th.
We had a lengthy public properties meeting where we went through all this. I know Jansen, the service director, the mayor, the law director, we've been working on this for probably since January, trying to get this all figured out. I was also at Civil Service. I know they tried to expedite everything as far as testing and postings and keeping this moving, so I would support the emergency clause, and I would ask if we could move it on to council as soon as possible, then too, even as soon as tonight, so that we can be on top of this for, what's that?
That's not the council thing.
Oh, it is.
Well, yeah, I wanted to ask council what they thought about that too, because usually,
Yeah, he said we were gonna decide whether.
So
yeah.
if I'm gonna go through all the work of putting it together, I'm putting it on the agenda.
I'll comment, because I said something to Jansen before. You know, I'm not real excited about moving stuff straight from finance right upstairs. I like things to season a little bit. I understand he's in a pinch, and I know how busy. This is the big time for his season. I know they're busier right now with the spring get-up, so I mean, after discussions with him, and I understand he's trying to move as quickly as possible once that retirement came in, I'm comfortable.
I'm good with it too.
And I guess in his defense, the reason it's taken, it would have been much quicker just to leave things exactly the way they are, but he really did attempt to align the department in a way that better reflects the workload and make it more functional and save money, John. So
I don't know, I think
figured-
saving money is a good thing. I
figured
think
you'd like that.
everybody likes to save money.
It gives a more structured chain of command for the employees, as well as the mayor and Jansen.
Okay, any other questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including the emergency clause.
And so this will be on council tonight too then?
Thank
All
you.
in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, next one is 1852, trade-in of police department firearms. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. President. We're requesting to trade in our frontline Smith & Wesson M&P 40 caliber handguns that all of our patrol officers and our specials use. They're getting close to 5 years old, and we would like to rotate those through. The quote we got from Vance's, who is our vendor for Smith & Wesson, is for $24,588.25. They would take 65 of our guns that we have now, we would trade those in. They would give us a credit of $14,000 for that trade-in, and that would leave a balance of $10,588.25.
Questions?
So is that routine? Is that a routine, you know, a life expectancy, or you know, how do you come up with that 5-year trade-in?
It is, we base it quite a bit on round counts as well. We have done quite a bit of training with those pistols. There's also an issue with the external safeties that we're trying to correct as well.
Okay, so it's a pretty standard thing to do then?
Yes, sir.
A smart thing to do, I suppose, too.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And Chief, I know you asked for the emergency clause.
Yes, sir, I did. As I said, the external safety issue came up, and like to correct that as quickly as possible, so I requested the emergency clause.
Questions on that?
The safety issues, is that equivalent to like a manufacturer's recall?
No,
No?
no, this was a feature that was put on those guns that the manufacturer did not recommend, so we're just trying to correct that issue.
Oh, okay, all right. Thank you.
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including the emergency clause?
Any further discussion? All in favor with the emergency clause?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Chief. 1853, purchase of a 2018 all-wheel drive Ford Interceptor for the Muni Court. Commissioner
Chairman?
Oh,
Bailiff Metting
Oh, hey,
from
Bailiff.
Municipal Court. The judges detailed me to come over here to answer your questions.
All right. So what's going on? You're getting a new vehicle.
Right, it is in our 5-year budget plan for this year. The cost came in at $24,428. I believe we're budgeted for $28,000 overall. That would also allow them for converting the radios and the other minor things that have to be done.
And this is going to take, what vehicle out of service? Or what's going to happen with the vehicle that's currently in service?
As last year, or as 5 years ago when we last traded the vehicle in, that vehicle, the old vehicle, went to the city inventory. And it was used for several years, I believe, before it went into the auction. And we foresee that being the case this year again. We're recommending that the vehicle be replaced on schedule. It currently has just under 95,000 miles on it. They're hard miles because it's a lot of stop and go driving, delivery of papers and so on and so forth. And the vehicle was involved in a fairly bad traffic crash last year. We've already had to put this year approximately $1,100 into it for transmission. So we're recommending that we purchase the new vehicle. We'd like to have the emergency clause considered for the vehicle, as it is already in the budget, and the vendor, the Ford dealer that got the state bid, is stating approximately 140 days minimum for build time before the vehicle would be delivered.
What do you use this for? I mean, I don't want to sound like I don't know, but I don't know. So I guess I'll sound like I don't really know.
Has a multitude of uses, sir. Primary use is delivery of papers by the court. We deliver subpoenas, serve summonses with the vehicle. The deputy bailiff that's assigned to that vehicle does the evictions in our court jurisdiction. We did 135 of those last year, plus we transport prisoners with the vehicle from court to the jail and vice versa. Under Judge Werner, we're trying to do more of that to relieve the police departments of that responsibility of transporting people over for the court. Primarily sentencing is in the morning, as we have manpower availability to do that. And we also use the vehicle.
My mom not to call me.
We use the vehicle approximately twice a week, where the bailiffs actually go out and do warrant service. We do that Tuesdays and Thursdays usually. And last year, we made approximately 100 arrests with, so the vehicle gets a lot of use.
So it's used for a lot more than just delivering papers?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I was looking at the kind of car, I guess, and I was wondering if it was just delivering papers. But I understand. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, sir.
Any other questions?
Is it the SUV type or the sedan type?
No, this is a sedan type.
Sedan.
The SUV is a little large for our needs.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Move to approve.
Second?
What about the
With
emergency?
the- or- I didn't think this was
Yes,
needed.
no.
It's not
Yeah,
on
it
here,
didn't
but
need
he's
to-
requesting.
He's requesting it now.
Yeah, move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including the emergency clause?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, sir.
1854 fiscal year 16 CHIP private rehab for 749 North Huntington Street. Jonathan?
Yes, thank you. This is, as you said, a private rehab under our current CHIP program for a property here in the city of Medina.
Yep, good.
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including the emergency clause?
I'm sorry, what?
Why the emergency clause?
So we can expedite the payment to the contractors. They have to lay it all out at the beginning, and then they're reimbursed. And since we only have a couple contractors that bid on these due to the paperwork requirements, we like to get the funds back to them as quickly as possible, so that they can keep bidding on CHIP projects.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 1855 fiscal year CHIP private rehab for 527 Bronson Street.
Thank you. Yes, this is also a private rehabilitation for a property here in the city of Medina. The emergency clause is requested for the same reason as the last one, to get the contractor paid so they can keep bidding.
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second including emergency clause.
For discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item number 8 was pulled. So we go to item number 9, 1857, authorized conversion of ED and marketing associate position to full-time. Kimberly.
Thank you, Mr. President. Currently, the Salaries and Benefit Code in Section 310211 for Community Development Department is approved to employ an economic development and marketing associate position on a permanent part-time basis not to exceed 29 hours a week, which is a pay grade 9A. We are requesting to convert the position from permanent part-time to permanent full-time, looking at the pay grade 110 with a starting salary of a little over $45,000 a year. We were requesting to fund this position from the Economic Development JED account, which is fund number 143. In your packets, I broke out a list of the current workload, which is 2 pages. One of the items, positions has been evolving over the past couple of years since we converted it from an intern to part-time. One of the things that we took on this year, after Dawn left in the mayor's office, was the bicentennial committee. So we've added all that workload into the economic development department, as well as assisting the mayor's office with articles and correspondence and, proofing those kinds of things, writing those kinds of things. So we sort of view this as it's economic development and marketing from our department, but also on a broader picture for the whole city. We also are looking at amending the job description, which you have in your packets, the existing and the proposed. We'd like to be able to assist all departments. We are doing some of this now with press releases, but we want to be able to have it more formally incorporated and help all the departments with press releases and promotional articles to help promote the city overall and have a more consistent appearance with that. And then another item that we would like to add, which we don't really have time right now to do, is we have a very vibrant business retention expansion visitation program for our industrial base, but not for the remaining businesses like the retailers and service industry. So we'd like to add that to this position as well. And we want to beef up some of our social media presence with LinkedIn. We have a LinkedIn page, but we're not really utilizing it right now. One of the things was crossed out was the Facebook page, and that was an error that would actually stay in there. For additional tasks, we've got several projects that we are trying to chase down this year, and there's a separate sheet in your packet that lists all of those things that we are working on and researching. I don't know if you had a chance to review the 2017 annual report, but in 2016, our business investment was at $37 million. And in 2017, that increased to $138 million, was like a 208% increase. So that shows how busy our office is. And a lot of these projects, when we're working with site selectors, we don't get much notice that they're gonna be in town, and so we are scrambling to pull information, researching real estate. It could be vacant land. If it's vacant land, they need to know about gas wells, topography, where's the sewer line, where's the water line. we need maps of all these different things, and usually we have like a 24-hour timeline to turn that around and meet with you know, our economic development partners, Jobs Ohio, the county, and so forth, as well as the site selectors. So the workload has really increased quite a bit, so we feel that the changing from part-time to full-time is justified, and we have the funding in the JED account to manage that on an annual basis. And then there's a spreadsheet in there, because I know, John, you like the numbers, so I listed it, and it's color-coded, but I don't know if it came color-coded on your copy.
No, I guess that's the question now. Currently, the position pays how much a year is part-time? 20, would you say?
Yeah, so let me get that out. So the hourly rate is, just the base is $21.67, but then when you add like the Medicare, the PERS, and the workers' comp, it's at $25.68 a year. So annually, right now, we're paying with those benefits $38,725.44. So the increase that we would be looking at, just base salary, is $12,395.24 a year. But then when you add the workers' comp and Medicare and all that in, that takes it up to $14,688.96.
Yeah.
Barbara currently is, so obviously she's not on our health insurance. She has her own health insurance plan from her previous employment, so she would be opting out of healthcare coverage. And then I guess with our wellness program that we have now, you could do opt out without wellness and opt out with wellness, so I put those amounts in there too. So the city would not be paying for healthcare coverage for her.
I have a question too.
Okay,
Go ahead,
thank you.
John.
Well, I just want to know, we talked about this a little bit, you had her as an intern, we had somebody else there as an intern before, I thought, but that didn't,
We had a couple of interns over the years, but the problem with that is the hours, there was a limited amount of hours, so it was basically 6 months worth of work. So by the time you got a student in there, got them some training, got them up and running, and then you're out of hours, and then the other 6 months of the year, you had no funding. Plus, it's just not a very efficient way to do it if you're always training somebody. So that's when, after the last intern a couple years ago, I thought we needed to have more stability in the department, and then we moved it from the intern to the part-time position.
does this take any work away from Sandy then, or is Sandy booked up for doing other stuff?
Well, so when we changed this to part-time, I separated those duties out because a lot of Sandy's time is spent on the CHIP program and the CDBG grant, so a lot of that, plus she's doing all of the planning and zoning packets on a monthly basis, plus she does all those minutes. She handles all of the financials, and then I've got her handling certain economic development functions that are critical, but they're, like, for example, the CRAs, processing those paperwork when those come in. It's, they're important things, but it's not as time intensive. The biggest thing that I'm utilizing her for right now are the scheduling of our business retention expansion visits, and then we're ramping up our job creation grant monitoring, so that usually happens from now through the summer, by the time we get all the information in and stuff like that. So she's handling those job creation grants, the CRAs, the BRE visits. Those are probably the major things. The rest of the stuff that she was doing was shifted to Barbara, along with all the economic development and marketing stuff, so.
Bill?
I've got a couple of questions. I have no criticism or complaint about your department at all. I know you guys handle a lot of stuff. I guess a couple things though. We're talking about a position here and not a person.
Correct.
Right.
It's just that there happens to be a person in the position, so.
Well, there's a person in the position that's part-time.
Right.
Right. So we're going to create another position. And I don't know, I don't disagree particularly, but it seems like in discussions we've had, every department here, or most of the departments here seem to be well-worked, maybe overworked. And I don't know, is there a hierarchy for us to look at of what department, if you said which department is in very most need of more help in order to best perform their task, what department might that be? And what position would that be where we would want to either add a person or upgrade a person? Because in conversations that we've had, not here necessarily, but with, as we've talked with department people and how much the administration accomplishes with so few people, with the cross-training and filling in, is there that list of what rose to the top? If you really had to do this and put this money into someplace, is there another department we could need? Because, to me, you guys, you do a great job, but then maybe we could use it someplace else. We have a lot of neighborhoods, that we could probably use somebody to do a more, you do the best you can do, but could we use somebody doing more full-time neighborhood, maintenance on neighborhoods? Or is there another position in the service department where we really need somebody to make things work better or to provide better service? I guess that's what I would want to see before I voted. Is this the very most important position that we're looking at? And are we certainly looking at this not as the person, but as the job?
Well, I can probably answer that better. I wouldn't have brought it before the council if I didn't think it was important. You can't do $130-some million worth of projects and expect that Kimberly in a full-time position and a part-time clerk can handle those things. You can for a short period of time, but we can't keep up like that. We've got two major corporations right now that I can't share with you more specifically that are looking at major investments and major job creations in the city. But those all take time and effort. Out of fairness, this money is all coming from her existing funding. It's not like we're coming to council and asking you to give a new appropriation for it. If we were, then I think we would have to balance that request versus everything else going on in the city, as you stated. But she's paying for the part-time position with her carry forward and the difference between part-time and full-time with the existing JED funds. The other thing that is not quite fair is that the way this structure was set up way back when is Sandy and this part-time position, which started as an intern, but now is part-time, and Kimberly are all out of the economic development. So Sandy does all of the planning and zoning packets, all of the minutes, all of those type things, but none of that money is contributed by planning and zoning. It's just not built into that budget. So really, the CRAs, the job creation grants, those type things, because Sandy's very good with the numbers and tracking those things, she assists quite a bit with, but the bulk of her time is not in economic development. It's in either the grants, the CHIP, the CDBG, and these few things here. So the fact that she has the money and we have the need, and there's a great deal of momentum in the city with folks wanting to relocate here, is what we're trying to capitalize on. And from the neighborhood perspective, the more industrial growth we can continue to propel and assist with, the lower we can keep the income tax for everybody else. If it weren't for the industry, then obviously that would fall back on the residents. So we're doing everything we can because the cost of services keeps increasing. We saw a cut in the local government funds a number of years back. They're talking now about possibly raising some of that back up if the budget goes through, which would be beneficial to us. but we're trying to do what we can to generate more funds without having to go back to the taxpayers.
So you see it as a you see it as I understand the budget part, you see it as a priority for us to carry on with really what we're doing with that.
For the demands of this office.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And I think it's 50%, or our tax base is 50% industry, I think, is 50 or 50.
I don't know exactly what it is now. It has risen in the last 10
It's
years.
pretty, I think it is. I thought it was somewhere around 50. Am I
I
right?
don't have that off the top of my head. I can pull from our, you're talking our income tax.
Yeah.
I can pull from our income tax figures, but there's a little bit of gray area in there because we have withholding, which can be residents or not.
Right.
And then we have net profits, which is fairly minimal, and then we have individuals.
Well, I just remember one of the reasons that I pursued this position in 2003. In the 1970s and 80s, it was like 68% industrial versus the 30.
But I think we're talking about two different things there, because one of the numbers that was floated was what is the property tax split, which doesn't impact as much on the city's budget, although it's a related figure, because if we have more industrial, there's also income there.
Well, on the income, I know when we passed the new income tax rate, at that time, if my memory's correct, it was like a 68% individual income tax that was supplying the money versus the 30% industrial, if I remember correctly. That has increased since 2003, I would say 10 years, but maybe it's a little bit longer now, and it may be 50-50, but I think actually the industrial percentages are ahead of the individual income taxpayer, which is a great thing. You know, I'd like to get it up to like 80-20, 80%.
I think
When I say industrial, I mean working.
But I think I talked, I don't know, it might have been a year or two when I talked to the chamber one time about, when we were talking about taxes, it seemed to me that it was over 50. It was 50-something is what it seemed like, because when you look at a number of issues here, and people talk about things like truck traffic or busy streets or whatever, you also have to look at where that goes, why we have a lot of that traffic, and it's produced, we have strong industry, and exactly what you were saying, if we started a declining industry, that'd be fine, but then your taxes would, somebody's gonna have to make up for that deficit, or you don't have this, you no longer provide the services that are necessary.
We do, just one last point was about the JED. We do have the 3 new businesses that just came online, which is the property where UH was originally supposed to go. And those 3 businesses just opened up like earlier this year. So that JED fund will increase in 2018 with those new ones coming online.
But the calculations were not based on the new, it was
Right.
based on
Right.
what we got in 2017. So
Yes.
that's why we're comfortable that it's a conservative allocation to pay for the position.
The only other question that I had, and I don't know if Bill touched on it or not, is, and I don't know, this is, your department is not a bargaining department, correct?
Right, so what we would be proposing is this would be a exempt position.
Okay.
Full-time
And that
exempt.
question is, going from a part-time position to a full-time position, we don't have to advertise, I mean, we can actually appoint the person that's currently holding that position.
Yeah, there's really 2 methods. One is an exceptional appointment instead of testing or opening it up. If you have somebody, we've used that previously in the city here on a number of occasions. When you have somebody that's shown their abilities and could do the job and can do the job that's proposed, one's called an exceptional appointment. The other is under the civil service rules. The mayor is authorized, and I've never used more than my administrative assistant position, but the mayor's authorized to have 3 clerical non-exempt, or 3 clerical exempt positions. the fact that this position is going to be proposed to take over all of the press releases, all of the correspondence from the city, more like a public relations side of it. So there's some consistency with each of those messages, and her background is in English. She also wrote an article that's going to appear in the City and Villages magazine here, I think, in the May edition, if it makes all the final cuts, talking about the positive things that we're doing here, that then it makes sense for me to have that under that authority. Because
It was just a question, I didn't know if-
No, that's fine, but it's not benefiting just economic development, it's benefiting
Sure.
the entire city.
So she's gonna be under your office.
Correct.
So the budget's gonna come out of your office, but be paid out of the Economic Development Office? Because she has to be under your budget then, right?
No.
She doesn't have to be?
No, she can be one of those appointments, but
Oh.
she's working over there.
I get you.
And just to piggyback on what Councilman Simpson is saying, the proposed position description has to go to civil service.
Okay.
So, I mean, they're aware of this is coming and they don't have any issues with it, but I guess we'd have to make it subject to that.
Yeah, I mean, and the only reason I asked, and I think it's probably more on the bargaining side, is when a new position becomes available, other people around the city has the ability to apply for that
Oh,
position.
Yeah, that's for the service Teamsters group.
That's-
Okay, so our clerical folks at City Hall, though, are not involved with
Okay,
that.
that answered my question.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Should have started there.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I'm struggling with it myself. I know you do a great job, Kimberly, and I know Barbara does a great job as well. When you first started here, it was just you, and you tried an intern, and then you asked for more money for an intern. Then you wanted a part-time, and I think we then raised the part-time wage, which I'm all in support of, but, adding another full-time position, and, Bill brings up, and I know the mayor's the executive, but Bill brings up, which came to my mind, is the other departments that possibly need full-time, and we're, besides the police department, I don't think we've really done too much to add any additional full-time, and I'm struggling with, and I'm thinking down the road too, that, yes, we're trying to capitalize on an industrial area, but does it still need some help? Yeah, and you guys, I've witnessed your coming out and greeting the companies out there, which I think is very professional, and enjoyed when you came to my employer. But, the city's running out of money, and, and we do ask a lot from each department to make ends meet, work on a budget, save money, which you are doing, but, I also think maybe down the road, if we really get in a pinch and we don't get the support from the residents of Medina, that JED money, we might have to, and I don't even know if we're allowed, but I was thinking we might have to pay some of your salary out of that if we get to a desperate situation where we've had years ago. So I'm really struggling adding a full-time position here.
Well, the only other thing I would say to that, these are all very good points, okay? But from where I'm sitting, I'm not the fire department with trucks, fire gear, police department with guns, ammos, fleets of vehicles, $40,000 worth of tires, okay? When I hear $40,000 worth of tires, I think you could buy a whole brand-new car. Now, I get it, they're really big tires and it's needed, but like my department, I don't have those kinds of things, right? Those are all tools that they use to do their job. This is how I view this position. It's a tool to help get the job done, to keep things moving forward. So that's how, I see a lot of stuff, right? We come to these meetings every 2 weeks and everybody's got, Parks Department, they've got their, special kinds of tractors and equipment, and then you gotta have a special kind of thing to haul it, and then, then the pool breaks down and now it's a pump, and then it's this thing, those are all tools, right, to keep things going. I don't have all that. I just, this is my tool. And I would like to have a ribbon cutting party bus, but I know that's not in the budget, so go with this.
Is there any chance that, a lot of times we kind of look at this in the 5-year budget process, and when we're going to use carry forward funds and use the JED funds, just to look at it out and make sure we can sustain this? I think that's what it's just not usual, I think, that we're adding positions or changing from full-time or part-time to full-time at a finance committee. It's usually part of the bigger budget process, and we're looking at the whole department budget and the whole city budget, and I think that helps all of us and makes us feel a little more comfortable, because we've been so conservative about adding positions.
So the sustainability, if you look at that spreadsheet, was that she's consistently paid for the part-time. So now we're just talking about the difference with the JED funds. And the JED funds, we looked at 2017, knowing that with the 3 new businesses and hopefully additional businesses as we develop along State Route 3 and other still open areas on 18 there, that those JED numbers are going to continue to swell. So we carried it out for the 5 years, and using 2017 figures, we have enough to maintain that. If there's inflation beyond the 5 years, then obviously the new businesses are going to be putting in more money than what we took in 2017. So that was the reasoning that we did what we did.
I guess I was thinking a little bit about how else could that money be used, like Mark mentioned too, just as we're looking at things for economic development, maybe not hiring somebody, but other ways that we might use it, or if we ever did get at a point where it covers.
What, to take the JED money, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's solely up to council. I mean, right now, the way it is a certain percentage of that is coming over to Kimberly's department to use for economic development purposes. If you all decide that you want to change that or change that in the future, then we have to live with the result of that. As I told you when I answered Bill, I didn't think this was important. We wouldn't be here talking about it. Are there other things? You could ask any department head sitting here. There's lots of needs in the city. But this is a 1.5-person department, and to do the amount of work and the effort that we're doing, it's going to take more. It's going to take more for us to keep carrying the load there. And if we don't do it, then we just can't do the amount of work that's coming in.
I think part of the answer is in some of your questions, Mark, in that we started off with an intern or two, and then went to part-time, then we increased the rate of part-time, and now we're asking for a full-time. I think that's because the amount of work is increasing because of the work they've been doing, all right? And without having that engine out there, how do I want to say, recruiting businesses and selling the city, we are going to run into the problem that you're foreseeing down the road. I really think right now what we're looking at the full cost here would be about $19,000 increase per year on what we're getting. For $19,000, we're going to get $137 million. Okay.
Is that sustained every year?
But the mayor's,
is that temporary?
the mayor's statistics are for the next 5 years. We'll be able to maintain that with the money that's coming from the JED, the money that's coming from the anticipated increases. We've had, how much was this payroll increases for 2017 that are coming in with Carlisle?
Okay.
And all of those, we have
Yeah,
those.
we had, I think, 5 job creation grants last year. I think that's the most that we've had in 1 year, so.
Okay.
I didn't bring that spreadsheet, but.
But suffice it to say,
Right.
we went to a lot of ribbon cuttings with a lot of job increases because of the work that Kimberly and her department have been doing this year, and anticipate continuing to do. Now, are we going to hit a stopping point when we run out of industrial land or buildings or whatever? Yeah, but we'll deal with that at that point in time. But I think here, to keep this going so we can keep the tax rate low at 1.25% for the individuals, and spread that economic growth around everybody. I think your concerns about having the neighborhoods taken care of, your concerns about having other neighborhoods taken care of as well. I think they'll take care of themselves with this money coming in,
Well,
okay?
You know,
my neighborhood, I'm sorry, Bill.
Go, no, go.
That's one of the, I mean, he brought up an example, one of the things I'm concerned about is my neighborhoods, we'll say half to majority is older stock homes that I've seen, I don't want to say depreciation, but I've seen a lot of that older stock really decline, needs attention. And, you know, I got a list right here of 2 things I'm going to talk to the building or the community development department about. So, you know, I appreciate everything Kimberly's done, and believe me, I work over in the industrial area. I see what goes on over there. And I appreciate all the hard work. You know, I guess I'm just asking to continue that hard work and, you know, let's still make things happen, but I'm not ready to put another full-time on the books.
See, I think my question was, I think that, you know, the mayor generally answered the question. You know, to me, I don't know, that it made sense to me. I can understand the amount of money, where the money's coming from, the benefit that we have, the bleed-off effect of, you know, if we do this, then over here you get this. And, yeah, I mean, I'd like to see us hire, you know, lessen the load of a number of other departments too, but the truth is, it's not exactly the same. You know, they're not asking for new money. And we know for a fact that what's been going on in the Economic Development Department, we know for a fact that it works. I mean, how well it has been working. You know, I was talking to some group of people today, this afternoon, and one woman said to me, she said, I'm from Akron, but my friends and I, we come, she said, you have more going on here in Akron, in this community, than we have, and we come here to see things. And I was at Coolbeans for a meeting on Saturday, and I was getting coffee, and I started chatting to a woman who said, she said, I'm from Shaker Heights. I just came here because I wanted to come here and go to some, you know, some cooking thing that was here. I said, you ever been here before? She goes, no, but it's a beautiful town. You know, and if you hook that in with, you know, what we've talked about is the general economic viability that we have that's based on this continual, you know, bringing in new people and bringing in new businesses, then I'd have to say, yeah, it's a good answer to the question I had, and while we still hope that we can generate the funds to help the other departments, this is a pretty, and you're right, Jim, we don't usually do this at this period of time in this meeting, in these kind of meetings, but it's not that much money, and the benefit, what we'll get from it, is probably well outweighs what we're gonna spend, or the risk we're gonna take that we get 5 years down, okay, it doesn't work.
Well, the question is, you said 19, isn't it 14,500?
I'm looking if she does, depending on how they do it. I took the largest number. Yeah, 14.5, and then you add the wellness in there, it's 19.7.
Oh, she doesn't, well, this position.
Well, it would
Yeah, you
be,
can't.
I think what we would be looking at, because our existing employee is not in the wellness program, so she has to opt out without wellness, so that's the 17,088 number. And I don't know that we can, she said she doesn't even need that either, but I don't know that we can waive that legally, because I think it's an ordinance thing. But I did want to make one clarification to Councilman Colasar's and Rose's points about the intern position. When we had it, I think it started out like 10 something an hour, and then we raised that to $12.50. Then we converted it to part-time. Since it's been part-time, we have not raised the hourly rate other than the cost of living. So that's just one point of clarification.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, the difference that I see here is, of course, you're using JED funds, which are only generated through economic development to begin with, and they're not generated in other manners. And it's not a civil service position. I think if it was a civil service position, it would be an easy decision for me, because I don't think we need to keep adding civil service because they're so hard to manage. But, you know, since it's not, I mean, it seems workable with using the JED funds. But hearing everybody here, I don't get a sense of a consensus.
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it.
Do it.
Okay, maybe, I don't know, Laura, I haven't heard from you, you came in late.
I did come in late, yes, I got the wrong memo
Should we
there.
start over?
Yes, please, restate every point. You know what, in a little bit that I have heard, it's the JED funds, and she's more or less going to create her own funds to pay for the own person who's going to help her continue to do her own funds. It just sounds like it's cyclical, and it makes sense to me. And I can tell you that in the years that I've been here and that Kimberly's been here, I know the economic development outreach because I have in my system, every time I run a credit card during any event that's on the weekends, the circle is getting bigger and bigger of the draw that we're pulling to Medina, and I can see that on a dot graph. So I know that, we're bringing more people in, and I can only imagine the workload has increased as that's going on. So with the limited amount of information that I just got, I don't feel like it would be a bad idea.
Okay, I've made my point, so I would have liked to wait until the budget process.
In Mark's comments, I mean, like I said, I always respect Mark. You're real conservative, and I don't always agree with you. I don't agree with you on this, but as far as the neighborhoods, and I do, I mean, some of our older neighborhoods, the only comment I'll make is I've got several friends that are realtors, and all of them have said, well, we can't find enough houses for sale to keep up the demand of housing. So I actually think that the market in the Medina city, entire city, has increased, and I hope it's not going to change. And as far as the rehabbing of some houses, everybody understands. I mean, the price, the value of the house may go up, but if you want to stay there and try to rehab the house, they may not have the funds to do that. I appreciate that. I'm in the same boat. But I just think since this department has been created, that the growth in the city, I'm not just talking about the square, but the growth in the city and of manufacturing and retail has just been on a steady rise, and I just, hopefully, I mean, there's nobody has a crystal ball and can foresee what's going to happen in 5 years from now, but the way things are now and the way this department has progressed, I think we still have a pretty bright future. And I've been one that have said all along, when money gets tight, we have to find other avenues to bring in revenue. I mean, every budget meeting I basically say that. And basically, besides the economic development, the only way that we can bring in more revenue is to raise taxes, and nobody wants to do that.
Get more additions on Cleveland Clinic.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the other words, get to Cleveland Clinic. You keep spending that money and improving the hospital, I mean, that'll.
Thank you.
And I guess the only thing else I want to add is that I appreciate your department. And when I hear you say, oh yeah, all these other departments, but let's not forget, all these other departments make the economic department work as well too. It's the service department, it's engineering department, it's Jonathan from planning and zoning. All those people come together to bring economic development to the city. And they put in a lot of time and they do a lot of things, and that stretches their department then too. So I guess I just felt like I needed to put in a plug for those other departments.
Well, I totally agree. It's a team effort across the board, but just in day-to-day expenditures, we just don't have those tools, right? So, but I also know, like with the JED fund, when those monies come in, Keith could probably talk to it more, each department gets a percentage of that too. So I may be getting the bulk of it, but it is an economic development program, but everybody as a whole in the city is benefiting.
60%, I believe it is. That's great. I mean, we did it on purpose, but yes. We do that. All right.
Move to approve.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
5-2.
What'd you say, John?
5-2.
5-2.
I thought you said I do too.
That's what I
I said aye.
1858 MCRC, amending salaries and benefits, pay grade changes of 2 positions. Mr. Wright?
Thank you. This should be pretty easy for you. We are respectfully requesting you to approve the NCRC change, which is lower 2 full-time pay grade positions. These positions are the program manager, which is recently vacant as of February 7th, and the program specialist position. These 2 changes will save the rec center approximately $25,000 in the first year alone, and these pay grades will reflect the industry is currently paying, or the industry paying We also updated the job descriptions to include more of the health of Medina and other miscellaneous duties that they perform now. Those were also approved for civil service last week on the 7th. Civil Service Commission was asked, with the mayor's approval, to consider appointment of Maureen Dow, who's the program specialist now, to the program manager position by exceptional appointment, and it was approved. Emergency clause was requested because we do need to fill the program specialist position as soon as possible, but we could not advertise for the position until the job descriptions and the lower pay grades were approved.
So my question is, if the industry standard is lower, was it higher before too? I mean, why were we higher than industry?
No, it's always kind of been higher. If you remember a couple of years ago, these were at a 15A through F, and I lowered them to a 13A through F. I think it was 5 years ago. Now we're requesting to lower them from a 13 to an 11.
Questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including the emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
18059, City Hall Parking Structure, Public Bidding Procedure and Consultant Selection Process. Mr. Patton.
Thank you. This, of course, has to do with the City Hall parking deck. We looked at a couple different delivery methods. Construction manager at risk, you might remember, we had a presentation a year or two ago to Council of the Whole. And the other is design build, which is the process we used when we built the first parking deck, the courthouse parking deck. If you're looking at it, we're recommending that we use design build again. Talked to a number of contractors that will be interested in bidding on this process, as well as a couple of architects and engineers that may be involved as well. And they unanimously recommended that we use design build. It's the correct method, the best method for this project. So to do that, there's 2 pieces of legislation that will need passed. One is to establish a public bidding procedure which outlines that design-build process. And the second was to authorize us to go through a qualification-based selection process to select a criteria developer. We did this before. The last one used a firm called Desmond. And basically, they act as our they lead us through the process. They put together the design specs for the design build. We use them during construction for technical issues, that sort of thing. Neither one of those at this point requires any funds. What will happen, I outlined it in the request. We'll come back after we do that design and selection process, recommending whoever we recommend, and ask you to approve their contract. That would be the first time any monies would have to be appropriated. And then we'll have to come back 2 more. There's 5 pieces of legislation altogether in this process. After we select a criteria developer, we'll go through an initial process where we shortlist some design firms. Hopefully 3, hopefully we get 3 good design firms, and we'll invite them to submit a formal bid. We'll come to you at that point recommending that those 3 firms be the approved bidders. That'll be the 4th piece of legislation. And the 5th and final one is after we go through the bid process, coming back to you and asking for, to approve a contract for design build team.
So you're suggesting we're gonna follow the same format as we did on the county parking deck, which is design, bid, build?
Just design build.
Oh, just design, build?
Yeah.
Is that, we did that on the county, or did we do?
We did.
Okay.
The courthouse one, yes. We
Okay.
hire a design builder. In that case, it was Rulon. The design build method, we hire a contractor, and they hire an architect and engineer to work for them. So we don't have a direct relationship with the architect engineer. Our contract would be with that builder.
So would you say the construction timeline would be, when would you anticipate start of construction?
We'll go through this process now. I would anticipate sometime in the fall with completion, summer or fall of 2019.
Of completion, now does that coincide with our grant?
The grant requires us to enter into a contract by spring of 2019.
Okay,
And I think from that point, we would have 2 years to finish the project.
Okay. okay. Questions?
No.
Mark?
Appreciate it, John. I'll be voting no because I think, though we have high hopes, I think a second parking deck should not be at the top of our priority right now. I know you feel it's going to stimulate all this uptown growth, which it You know, we've had some growth uptown, but I think we can utilize our money better with more economic stimulation instead of additional parking deck. I think there's other areas that we could use that money for, not only for economic development, but also basic needs throughout our community. So I disagree with this construction and the time spent with our departments trying to put this together. Thank you.
Understood. Anybody else? Bill?
Maybe I didn't hear you. When we're gonna go through this process, so when would we actually start building? When would you
I would
project?
anticipate the fall.
Fall of 19?
No, of 18, this fall, 6 months from now or so.
We'd start building the fall of 18, and then completion would be maybe,
It's gonna be the, late summer, early fall of 2019.
okay.
Take a year. Now, also, you gotta remember, this whole process we're talking about includes carving off a portion on Liberty that'll be sold off and developed as retail and apartments on the frontage of Liberty, which kind of makes that work with the TIF arrangement. Because remember, the parking deck's being paid by those developments that occur, and we're not paying for it as a city. I mean, we're putting the money up front, but we're being reimbursed by the TIF money.
So do we expect that the front construction, the retail apartment condo or whatever, is going to be being
Very
built
close
in
over-
conjunction with,
Oh,
around the same time or shortly thereafter?
That's a good, I don't think that's been discussed.
Okay.
But I guess we looked at the numbers, if you recall, and it's almost, the construction that occurs on Liberty over our 30-year period will be very close to paying for the portion of the deck that we pay for. But we need something else to happen to pay it off, but it's almost a wash. It's not quite there to pay for it all just by that one little development occurring in the front of a 30-year period. Now,
Right.
we anticipate and hope, as Mark points out, that we're hoping on this, across the street to have the other development occur to, anything to occur.
I'm just talking about,
accelerate
I'm just
that.
talking about the property that we own, the property
That's what I'm
that's on our
talking
side.
about. Right.
You know,
And if something else happened on Elmwood, that'll even be more of an impetus. to pay
right, for sure. I'm just looking at the timeline. I'm just interested in what we are projecting the timeline to be to start that other construction, the retail condo construction.
I think we want to start it sooner rather than later, and I don't know if it can be mobilized at the same time, or it has to happen separately, but maybe that would be part of the discussion of the contractors of, would you rather see this occur simultaneously because they're going to be so close to one another, meaning maybe they want to make sure that they link them up together somehow. Or
Right, I mean, is that would that be a better way to do it? I mean, I don't know. I mean, if we're constructing a pretty big parking deck, would it then benefit the developer to be constructing at the same time, or does that make no difference whatsoever?
I don't know the answer.
We haven't parceled off the front yet, because we wanted to get this process moving. So, and the engineering is juggling a number of street and water and all these other projects. So, we're trying to get this down, we're trying to get this thing going. We need to separate that land from the rest of the city's land, and then you all will determine whether we're gonna ground lease or sell it. And developers are calling Kimberly weekly, bi-weekly, interested in trying to get that project moving, but we can only handle so much. One other clarification is it's not just from Sully's to the federal chambers. We also included the chamber property and if there's future development. But in addition to just on Liberty, we also have the one next door to the PD here that's included in the proposal.
Move to approve.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. 17-225 water rates. Keith?
Thank you, Mr. Coyne. The Utility Rate Review Commission met about a week ago. Council was represented, Councilwoman Parnell Cavey attended that. This water rates dates back to a request I submitted after the November water rate, I call it the rate hike meeting, but the Avon's meeting where they tell us what our rate increase is going to be. Utility Rate Review looked it over. They accepted the recommendation that I had requested, which was to adopt the policy similar to what the county has, where the rate increases as a percentage are passed through automatically. To give you some history on that, if you look at the last page of this request, it's, our rate that we pay to Avon has gone up cumulatively about 54% since '06. With this increase, it'll be now 58. So I wrote up some new language for this. I don't know if you have any questions on that language. If this is adopted, the new rates, based on what Avon is increasing our rate by in July, the new rates, our new rates will be $13.40, up from $13.03, and then the next 3,400 cubic feet will be $2.84 per 100, up from $2.76, and then beyond that it'll be $2.34, up from $2.27. That's applying that same 2.87 to our rates.
Laura, you were at the meeting, thoughts?
You know, we discussed all of the inability to actually say no to these people. So Avon Lake, when they have a water rate increase, we have to pay for the water. So it's just one of those things. So we've decided, or the Utility Rate Review Council had decided that they wanted to do the pass-through automatically so that we didn't have to meet each and every time that they did this, because apparently this happens quite often. And that we would pass that through. Did we say it was for a couple of years though, correct? And then we'd have to meet again?
I should have mentioned, they did want to meet every year to talk about it, to review where we are, but the rate increase would be automatic and they would be reviewing. Over time, we may find that our balance is not sufficient, that just passing through their rate isn't enough, or that it's more than enough.
I guess what I look at it as, I understand we do this every time, but I think I like it because we get to learn a little bit about, you know, what's going on, and if it was automatic, we may miss that. And I guess you mentioned they want to meet every year. I think we only do this once a year, really, to talk about the rate increase, because they do it, you know, they tell us in advance. They have to give us at least 6 months' notice, I guess, before they do it.
That's in the
So
contract.
at least we can discuss it again and try to figure out, you know, we have to do it. I know at the beginning, we didn't do it. When they gave a couple rate increases, we didn't do it. And then we could at least check our balances to see if we need to do any more or less, or how do we look. It all depends on our water users, I guess, of what the rates are gonna be.
I did kind of think about that. Section C of what I wrote for this wording, I stated that the finance director and the service director will notify council and the mayor of these changes, so you'd have the opportunity to discuss it.
I mean, I guess my personal opinion is I'd rather pass it every time. I know automatic things get lost. That's my just opinion. Sometimes they get lost, but.
So are we basically doing what we were doing before? Are we gonna do 3% annually like we did from 14 to 18, and then anything that comes to us, we're gonna automatic? Is that how am I reading that, or are we just gonna do this increase and this, take a look and not have anything on the books to increase for 19?
We won't have a specific rate on the books for 19, but.
Isn't that how we got ourselves in a pinch before? And I think that's why council came up with 3% annually.
Well, we had to do that to catch up.
Right, 'cause
Okay.
we went so many years without,
Okay.
because we had a.
Well, we're not caught up yet, because we still owe money for the water tower. There's still a lot to be paid back to the water, or from other accounts to the water department, because the water department is still borrowing. So we're not caught up yet, so that's what I'm trying to get at, what we're trying to do.
Well, the water department, I guess there's two different accounts, of course, water capital.
Right.
Water operations.
Right, and they're both running in the red, I think. Correct?
The way
Am I
this
wrong?
is,
I don't think they're in the red yet. I think
Well, I
combined they're in the
mean-
red.
no, but we've degraded those balances fairly significantly. The way this is worded, to answer the question, the rate increase in 19 would be whatever Avon's increase is,
If any.
if any. I mean, my experience with Avon, that's
They're gonna be something.
there
But I got-
probably will, but, right, but
But it would automatically happen, and we wouldn't have to do anything about it, meaning, they'll tell us, but we don't have to vote on it, I guess. And if you're okay with that, that's fine. I'm in the school, I'd rather vote on it each time. But that's just-
Oh, no, I mean, I think it's good that we have the dialogue to talk about where our account is. I'm just trying to get, to a point where, the water department can, or the accounts can sustain themselves, and we still have money borrowed, that an enterprise fund needed to operate, we had to borrow from another account, so that's what I'm getting at, is that we're.
Mr. Huber?
I was just talking to Pat, and he
think Pat's correct. He mentioned that the utility rate review in our ordinance, I think, has to be mandatorily once a year minimum. And I, in my capacity, respectfully agree with Mr. Coyne. I think this conversation comes about somewhat mandatorily because we have to address it, and it kind of connects up utility rate review to the council. We have to have this conversation. And I also agree that having these automatic type situations tends to let too much time go by where the conversation doesn't occur. So I have never really thought the county's methodology of doing this automatically was particularly great. I kind of thought that there should be a conversation between utility rate, the council, and what Avon is doing.
Thoughts on that?
I don't think anybody's saying we don't want.
Well, the recommendation from the utility rate review is automatic. I mean, is everybody, that's what they want. So we
So
don't,
I'm with you, John. I'd like to do it where we
Oh, yeah,
talk about it each time and then
definitely.
vote on it as it happens.
but we do have to do an increase of 3%.
So that's one question. But back to Mark's point. So the increase from Avon is 2.87?
2.87.
So if you're trying to stop some of the bleeding, then you have to go higher than 2.87. The utility rate review is just making a recommendation of what they feel. Ultimately, it's up to you all. If you think
Well, I
it'd be
mean-
better to do 3 or a little higher than 3 to try to fill some of the gap that we're seeing.
I think we could go to, my personal opinion is 3, because we gotta remember, a lot of people on fixed income, and every time we do this, impacts them.
No, I understand.
And so, but and I guess looking over the 5-year plan, we have a little room, but if we don't do increases, we can't do it. So we have to do something, but I think 3 is fine this time, and then revisit it again and look at the counts and see where we're at. Again, because I say, it depends on the water usage, because we charge a little bit more over some of the numbers, and there's bulk users, non-bulk users. So it all depends on how all that plays out, depends on what the number comes out at, so. It's not straightforward that easily. I mean, there's some complicating factors in coming up with the final numbers.
The math on 3%, if you're going to adopt the 3% rate increase, which I would want that to be effective with bills due after July 1st, 2018. And the math on that is 3% on the 1303 would be 1342. On the 276 would go to 284, and the 227 would go to 234.
What's the first one again?
1342.
Thank you.
So it'll be a
That's
30, a 39-cent increase
On the minimum bill,
for the
right?
minimum bill. So everybody will get
What was the
39.
lowest one?
Right.
284 and 234.
39 cents for me.
Yeah, there you go. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Is everybody okay with doing it? So we need a motion that. and they can-
Motion for 3% for bills effective after 7/1 of 18.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 1860, 2017 carry forward. Keith, you're
We're
on.
gonna have this at the end of this week for you, so you can look it over for a while before next meeting. One question I do have for you, what other information, it'll be on the sheets like we have for the budgets, what other information you want on there? I
Well,
have-
total carry forward, I guess the correct, because we approved some of it already, so we just want to know what the total carry forward would be, because we have to approve some now, but we already approved a little bit previously, so we just want to know what we have to approve now and then the aggregate. What the aggregate would be, meaning already approved carry forward plus new carry forward, what's the aggregate number? So we can have a feel for what each department saved and has available. Does that make sense?
You're gonna have the total carry forward. That's gonna be
Okay.
one column. What I guess I'm asking is, what other information you want as far as, do you want prior year spending for those lines? Do you want prior year carry forwards, or do you want the 5-year plan future numbers, or do you just want one column?
Well, I guess the question would be, my personal opinion is I don't really care. It's up to the department how to spend their money. If they save it, great, they have carry forward. If they don't, they're not getting any more. That's how I feel, but that's why they save, because then they can have it, and we give them the money back to do their projects that they want to do. So I think what we normally do is see the column of what's available, the total carry forward number, that's how much they saved in the aggregate over the previous, how many years this has been going on, right? That's what number we're talking about. it's not just last year's carry forward, it's the aggregate of all, because it just keeps building up.
And no, I mean, I'm not interested in projections for the next 5 years.
Okay.
'Cause we know
Just give me
that.
that column.
Well,
That's
we
fine.
know that, and that's so fluid, because it could change with each department on what comes in and what's actually needed.
So just the carry forward number, the aggregate carry forward number is probably, for each department's enough. Because then we can see how we budget and approve the budgets and how the spending is happening. You know, are we over budgeting, under budgeting? Are we kind of right on? Are they doing a great job savings? That's how we can analyze that, I guess. So,
All right, we'll give it to you.
okay. Any other questions on that? So we're gonna approve that, because we're gonna review it at the next finance meeting, and then go to council with that? Is that how we wanna do it? Because we're talking about it now.
You need a motion?
I don't.
No, I thought we weren't going to do anything till the next meeting. He was just asking for some clarification
Oh.
on what to present to us, right, Keith?
So then the next meeting, we could go to finance the council. We okay? Okay, 18061 budget amendments. We have several. We have 2018-009. Keith?
This is from the South Prospect Water Emergency.
Okay,
Who to approve?
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 2018-010, Kiwanis donation for pool.
It's a donation we have to appropriate to spend.
Move to approve.
Second.
So they donated for the concession stand. Okay. All in favor?
Second, yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I had to vote no on that. Aye.
Really? Donations?
It's a donation to go to
Well,
the
it's a whole,
concession stand, George.
He's gonna be consistent.
consistent. It's anything I'm consistent. 2018 MCRC.
These are, they're moving money around in anticipation of carry forward for projects.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2018 cemetery, public transfer, and Guilford Bridge.
The cemetery is what we discussed earlier, obviously. Transit is that we pay part of it out of CDBG. And then the bridge, this is kind of the mechanics behind it, because we have to do it in advance, and we have a grant project for that,
And that goes with the next ordinance,
which
too.
goes with the next one, with the authorization for the advance.
All right.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And going to 1862 fund advance for the Guilford Bridge.
Since you already approved the appropriation, it wouldn't make much sense to turn this down.
That's true. Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we have an anything else to come before finance? Besides the executive session? Okay.
I'll make a motion at 6:54 PM to go into executive session for the purposes of discussions with the
Second.
council attorneys regarding legal matters that are of the nature of pending or imminent litigation, to include the mayor, to include the mayor, the law director, anybody else?
Fourth.
Yes.
Second, okay.
Sorry, Jen.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Lamb?
Yes.
Darnell?
Yes.
Shields?
Yes.
Point?
Yes.
Simpson?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
We will be recessing into executive session, and we will be coming back to adjourn the meeting, but taking no action on the items discussed in the executive session. We are in recess.